right, welcome to today's, or really tonight's episode. My name is Tom Rolley for System.io. Coming to the end of the week, so it's Friday, just enjoyed a nice dinner with my family, and reflecting back on the week, I thought I might talk about one critical thing that you should track if you'd like to know what your team got done this week. You see, for me, I can look, I can know, I can bring up each team member's name and check off one particular thing, and that is, what did they do? You see, one of the problems that you've got is that your team don't use the instructions. They don't use your standard operating procedures. They sit on a shelf, if that's even if you've got them. It's probably better to not actually have them. Like if you put a lot of effort into creating a standard operating procedure, if you put a lot of effort into creating your manual of how things done, but then they don't get used, this is a difficult and almost heartbreaking experience. It's like, man, why do we put so much effort in if no one's actually going to use these things? At some point, I don't exactly remember when, there was a breakthrough that I made. And I'd already done some work around creating SOPs and how to split them and how to design them. And this came from Tim Francis out of Profit Factory. Really great work. It was critical in a developmental step. I didn't know what I was doing. When I started graduate medicine, it was great when it was just me. But as we expanded and I brought on more team, I suddenly found that I really did not know how to run a team, other than burning a truckload of cash really quickly. And so I scaled back. I'm like, man, I don't know what I'm doing here. This is not a good idea. And it took me, I don't know, that was probably 2018. And then it took me 2 years in order to crack the code, which I'm going to share with you. You see, there's an advantage to having standard operating procedures or even the processes and the processes that go together to create the results, also known as a system. But the big breakthrough that I had was that I started tracking the procedures, tracking the standard operating procedures. I was like, okay, great. What I normally see in business is that people just track the results. They're only, they're working on this thing that's the result, and then when it's done, it's done. But when you start tracking the processes, then a whole new game opens up. Guess what? You can have multiple people working on the same system at once, and they can see. You can look back over the week and see what work's got done, including your own. Like, do you even know what you got done this week? Because if you don't track the processes, then it's very easy just to feel like you got nothing done, even though you were doing 40, 50, 60, 70-hour weeks, exhausting, managing all the chaos. Your team can't tell what's going on. They don't use the processes. They don't track the processes. And yet when you begin to track the processes, suddenly it forces your team to begin to use the instructions. They're right there. They're right there with like the procedures and the tracking, and it's like, oh wow, naturally it begins to open up into an experience where it's easier for your team to use the processes. This makes sense, right? It's literally easier in life if you've got the manual. Like, look, I'm a man. I've tried to put together IKEA stuff without the instructions. It's really hard. With the instructions, sometimes it's still like pretty confusing. It's like, man, what language? What? Oh, there is no language. That's right. It's all done in pictures. It's like, okay, yeah, I think that goes like that. Is there someone I can just pay? Yes, there is. Oh my goodness, how cool. You can just get your IKEA furniture done for you. Never have to open those instructions. But realize that your work, the work that your business does, needs to be done to a standard. It needs to be done accurately. The details need to be followed. And this means that if this is a standard that you subscribe to, that you're like, you know what? I actually want my business to operate at that level where we consistently market and we consistently use a process for how we sell our products, how we tell whether someone's a good match for our business or whether they're not, and we kick them out, how we fulfill on those promises, how we do our money game, our accounting game, our tax game, planning game. all of these things are influenced and impacted heavily by one thing, and that is your systems game. It underpins all of these things. And when I started to track my processes, so many advantages started to open up. If I got distracted, I could come back and know where I was. I'm like, oh, wow, that's where I'm up to. This is awesome. This works. So that's my invitation for you. Work out how you're going to start tracking your processes and your team's processes, and suddenly you will have optics. And you'll be able to see the work of your business and who's doing what when, as well as having the retrospective ability to go back and look at it. Suddenly your team are using the standard operating procedures. You've got a standard that you can hold them to. You can troubleshoot. You can improve. If you're not doing it this way, then you are at a significant advantage to those that will. And so if you want to get this on point, if you're like, you know what, I just want to get this handled, then go to systemio.dev, watch the training, or you can just send me a message on the Facebook page, or if you're on Instagram, using that. I hope you got a lot of value out of tonight. Like, this is a key insight in this whole systems game. Track your processes. Track your processes. Track your processes. That's all I got for you tonight. I hope you enjoyed tonight's episode. I certainly enjoyed making it for you. So we continue this exploration of how systems create results. Look forward to seeing you in tomorrow's episode. See you then.